And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we will be talking about inflation, inflation, inflation. Recently, President Joe Biden came out and stated that inflation isn't happening because of government spending. It's happening because of Vladimir Putin and because our economy is so strong and that we don't have enough people working that's the reason why we are experiencing inflation, which is partially true. But the problem with that is to act and pretend as if government spending isn't the primary cause of inflation. It's just a flat out lie. And if you've been following me on this channel for, let's say, the past, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, I've been on here talking to you guys about the coming inflation. For example, if you come right here to this video, 8 months ago, I made this video where I was telling you exactly what was going to happen before it happened. And it's not because I'm some genius, although I like to think I am, or because I'm a prophet or a psychic. It's really just common sense and understanding basic economics. The markets operates off of supply and demand. So when the government was printing all of this money and doing stimulus checks to everyone and the PPP loans, you are literally creating money out of thin air. And then now, when you add on top of that, the Fed with the different lending facilities, interest rates being at 0%, the Fed going in and buying up junk bonds, the Fed going and doing quantitative easing. When you are printing that much money and the economy eventually reopens, the problem is that there isn't enough goods to go around. So you have more money chasing fewer goods, which causes prices to go up. But what we have to understand is that if you've been following me on this channel, you would also know that prior to the pandemic, we were already experiencing inflation. And right here, this is a list of the amount of inflation, the inflation rate every single year dating back to 1971. And the reason why I always pick 1971 is because the period between 1971 and 74 is where we completely broke away from the gold standard, where we actually had constraints on how much currency we can put into circulation. And if you look at this, every single year we experience inflation. It was 4% in 71, 3% in 72, 6% in 73, 11% in 74, 9% in 75, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Now, what you have to understand is that inflation is a hidden tax. It's a stealth tax. Why? Because the purchasing power of your dollar is losing its value every single year. So the problem is that you don't feel it. You don't necessarily see it because, it's only 3%. But now you start adding up that 3% on an annual basis, and you start to see that when you look at it as cumulatively, you start to see that inflation is a problem because now when we look at our purchasing power, if you go back to 1913, when the Federal Reserve was first created, up until now, one US dollar has the purchasing power of 5 cents compared to a dollar from 1913. So when you have people like Joe Biden, saying to you that inflation is happening because of Putin, no, it's not happening because of Putin. It's happening because of our monetary policy. It's happening because of fractional reserve lending. It's happening because of the way that our economy is structured, where literally debt is money, and that we have to create this wealth effect where we have rising asset prices and rising cost of goods and services. The problem is many of you, your incomes and your wages are not keeping up with inflation, and that becomes the problem. Now, in comes the Fed, Jerome Powell today, and they raised interest rate. Matter of fact, yesterday, they raised interest rates 25 basis points or a quarter of a percent. And they're scheduled to do about 6 rate hikes on the year. Now, you know where I stand. I believe that the Fed has to talk tough and act tough in order to try to, quote unquote, rein in inflation. But the reality is that there's absolutely no way that the Fed can raise interest rates for a long period of time because interest rates sets the cost of money, meaning how much money does it cost to borrow money, right? So when you understand that the Fed funds rate is going to set the price of money, then now we have to start thinking about the fact that if our government is spending $6.5 to $7 trillion a year and only bringing in $3.6 trillion of tax receipts, that means that there's a deficit, which means that the government has to go into the marketplace and borrow in order to finance itself. Well, if we have Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense spending, and we're going to keep spending this money and bringing in less tax revenue, well, then it's going to cost the government more money to borrow money, where the interest on the debt alone could be one of the government's largest expenditures. So we find ourselves in a tight spot because, again, if interest rates goes up, then the cost for the government to borrow money will go up as well. That will become a problem. So, and I'm going to highlight these things as we begin to speak. And this all ties back to the Great Reset. These things are not happening by mistake. They're all happening at the same time. Now, if you've been following me, many of you are doing well financially. You are making, substantial gains in Ethereum. You've made substantial gains in Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. And because of these fiscal problems that we have, because of inflation, what the rest of the world is eventually going to start to see is that this isn't just a United States problem. This is a fiat currency problem worldwide, because all fiat currencies eventually returns to its original value, which is zero. And we watch all great empires as they begin to collapse. They begin to go to more and more war. You start to see a breakdown of the family, a breakdown of society, a breakdown of literacy rates. And then you start to see the government start to feed on its own citizens, where they start to attack their pensions, their bank accounts. You start to get a lot of populist uprising where socialism and communism starts to take over, and people want to tax the rich, and they want reparations, they want free healthcare, they want free school, they want to go after the bankers. And again, not saying that these things are right or wrong, not saying that they're not noble or that they are or are not noble, just letting you know that all of the signs of a breakdown is happening right in front of you. It's really just a matter of if you're paying attention to these things. So we have a lot to get to in this video. Please do me a favor and like this video, share this video, subscribe. Make sure that you hit the notification bell and set it to all in terms of notifications, because sometimes YouTube does not send out my notifications. Now, in the event that you're not receiving my notifications, you can join my text message list, where when I go live, I will text you straight to your phone so that you can then come get the message on your phone and come. My number to text is in the description below. Simply text that number with the word YouTube and you'll be on my messaging list. Now, I'm also doing a $5,000 crypto giveaway next week. Yes, you heard me correctly. I am giving away $5,000 worth of cryptocurrency next week. I'm just taking care of a few things. In order for you to get the details about this giveaway, you need to be on my text message list. You need to go into the description, type the word YouTube to the number in my description below, and you'll be on my list, and I'll send you out the details. There's no gimmicks, there's no schemes, there's no catches. I'm giving away $5,000 worth of crypto. Now, with that being said, I have a new Instagram page because my previous Instagram page has been flagged. My new Instagram page is _common sense Eli _. So _common sense Eli _. A link to my new Instagram is in the description below. There's a lot of people impersonating me. I would never message you first. I do not trade stocks. I do not trade Forex. The only opportunity I have to offer you is my Tech Academy, where we cover all things crypto. How to buy, how to sell, how to store your crypto properly, how to build a portfolio. We teach you about NFTs, how to buy them, how to sell them, how to create them. We dive into DeFi, staking, lending, borrowing, you name it. If it's about crypto, we have it. And we have a free 3-day trial. So you're welcome to come test it out. Join our community of like-minded individuals. And going forward, you're definitely going to need to be a part of communities like this where you can get information. And for those of you who recently became lifetime members, guys, it's important that you follow instructions. I'm not attacking anyone. When you signed up to become a lifetime member, you received an email. If it's not in your primary inbox, it's in your spam folder. Go there, just simply type My Tech Academy. You can join our Slack group. There's a big video that pops up, and then below there's a link. You click that link, you set up your Slack account, and you come into our private group for members. If you're having any trouble, simply message support and we'll get everything taken care of for you. And with that being said, if you guys can hear me clearly, see me clearly, type 1 in the chat and we can get started. There we go. We're good to start. So here we go right here. It says Fed raises rates and projects 6 more increases in 2022. As you can see right here, this is the Fed funds rate over the years. You can see back in the late 1970s and early 80s, we had high interest rates. And again, we're never going to be able to get to those type of rates because we have too much debt as a country. The Federal Reserve lifted its key interest rate by 0.25 percentage point on Wednesday as policymakers took their first decisive step toward trying to tame rapid inflation by raising borrowing costs. Fed officials have kept interest rates near zero since March 2020, when the pandemic began to shake the U.S. economy, and this week's decision was their first rate increase since 2018. Policymakers projected 6 more similarly sized moves over the course of 2022 as inflation has reached a 40-year high, signaling that they are prepared to pull back support for the economy markedly. The economy no longer needs or wants this very highly accommodative stance, Jerome H. Powell, the Fed chair, said during his post-meeting news conference. The central bank's assault on rapid price increases will force it to strike a delicate balance as policymakers try to slow the economy just enough to temper demand and allow price pressures to moderate without going so far that they plunge the United States into a recession. Now, I want you to think about this for a second, and I'm going to get to the videos to highlight what I'm saying. What they want you to believe is that Jerome Powell sat up here for years and said that inflation is transitory. Inflation is transitory, meaning that it was temporary, that it was only happening because of simple dislocations in the market, that it wasn't because of their policy. Now they're turning around and they're saying to you, oh, we got it wrong. So what we're going to do now is raise interest rates so that we can get it right. Now, either you believe that he's either incompetent. Now, before him was Yellen, and before her was Ben Bernanke. And they literally got everything wrong. So either you have to believe that they're incompetent and magically now they are competent, or you have to believe that this is being done by design. I choose to believe that this is being done by design, which ties into the Great Reset, because there's no way that you can get it this wrong for this long and then magically now think that, poof, raising interest rates is going to fix everything. Because remember, if you raise rates, you begin to shrink as much liquidities in the system. Well, if there's less liquidity in the system and the stock market goes down, less people start working, that's less tax revenue that the government gets. If the government gets less tax revenue, the government has to borrow more money. If they have to borrow more money and the price of money costs more money because of interest rates, well, then the government has to pay more on the debt that they're borrowing. And if they have to borrow more and more debt, that means that the expenditures, meaning the actual line items that they have to attend for, the interest on the debt is going to be one of the government's largest expenditures, right next to Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, and defense spending. So you find yourself in this catch-22. It's like pushing on a string. And this is why I'm so bullish on getting away from money that is tied to governments, because governments will always lie as they go deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. We've watched this happen with the Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire. History doesn't repeat itself, but it damn sure rhymes. Now, let's listen to what Jerome Powell had to say here about inflation being transitory. This video is from June 16th, 2021. And then now we're going to listen to what he had to say yesterday.
Demand is very, very strong. Incomes are high. People have money on their in the bank accounts. Demand for goods is extremely high, and it hasn't come down. We're seeing the service sector reopening, and so you're seeing prices are moving back up off their lows there. But in terms of overcorrecting, I mean, I think there is a possibility on the other side of this that inflation could actually be quite low going forward. But that's not really where our focus is right now. Our focus right now is um, we need to our expectation is that these high inflation readings that we're seeing now will start to abate, and that's what we think, and it'll be like the lumber experience and like we expect the used car experience to be, with things like airplane tickets and hotels, which are the other two factors in the most recent CPI report that went up a lot. We expect that those prices will get back up to where they were, but there's no reason to think that they're going to keep going up a lot.
Now, I want you to think about this for a second. This is the Federal Reserve chairman, the guy who's in charge of monetary policy. This is June 16th, 2021, telling you that inflation is transitory. Now, he's been saying this now for 3 years, 4 years now, all while they keep printing more money. And then now all of a sudden, he wants you to believe that he's been wrong for the past 4 to 5 years. But magically now, he knows the solution and he's going to fix everything by raising rates. You would have to be a fool to listen to someone who has done nothing but continuously get it wrong and believe that magically they're going to get it right. Now, this is what he said, June 16th, 2021. That's almost 8 months ago? Now, let's listen to what he said yesterday.
Monetary policy goals that Congress has given us: maximum employment and price stability. Today, in support of these goals, the FOMC raised its policy interest rate by 1/4 percentage point. The economy is very strong, and against the backdrop of an extremely tight labor market and high inflation, the committee anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range for the federal funds rate will be appropriate. In addition, we expect to begin reducing the size of our balance sheet at a coming meeting. As we emphasize in our policy statement, with appropriate firming in the stance of monetary policy, we expect inflation to return to 2% while the labor market remains strong. That said, inflation is likely to take longer to return to our price stability goal than previously expected. We've had price stability for a very long time.
So I want you to understand, we don't have to listen to the whole thing. Let's just take a step back and unpack that a little bit. So number one, he's admitting that they like 2% inflation. So when I pull up this Excel spreadsheet and I show you that year over year, on average, we average about 2 to 3% inflation, which they think is price stability. So understand, in their world, you losing 2% of your purchasing power every single year is price stability. That's what they believe. This is not me saying this. This is him actually saying this out of his mouth. So understand that if you're taking money and you're parking money in a bank account, on average, you're losing at least 2% every single year. Let me repeat that for those of you in the back that may be a little slow. What he is telling you is that on average, if I am parking my money in a bank account, I am losing 2% of my purchasing power every single year. And that's if you believe their metrics and their data and the way that they measure inflation. Because if you actually use other metrics like, food and energy and education costs, like things you actually use, you begin to start to see like, hold on, inflation's much, much higher than 2% every single year, which brings me back to this infographic. You don't get to the point where the purchasing power of your dollar is worth 5 cents compared to $1 from 1913. And they somehow tell you that that's price stability. Because what we also understand is that your wages need to be able to keep up with inflation, and they're not. The wages are nowhere near, for the middle class and below, are not keeping up with inflation. So this becomes extremely problematic. Now, I don't like to sit up here and, toot my own horn, but you have people now, and we're going to get to this in terms of propaganda. You see all of these influencers and now all of these marketers coming out, and they're now trying to talk to you about inflation, and now they're trying to talk to you about purchasing power. And you have to ask yourself, where were you 2 years ago, because I was here 2 years ago talking about inflation. Go and watch my videos. I was here talking to you guys about inflation, about monetary policy 2 years ago when no one else was talking about it. I was talking to you about Bitcoin 2 years ago. I was talking to you about right here, Goldman Sachs is questioning the dollar's reserve status as GDP collapses. I was doing this over a year ago. And I don't do this to brag. I do this to show you who you listen to and what you listen to is either going to be beneficial to you or detrimental to you as we go into this great reset. And it's going to be very, very important that you take the time out to educate yourself because, see, I had a troll come and say to me, oh, you only read the news. No, I don't. I give you my vision of what I think the future is going to look like. And then what I do is I use the news and media as a reference point to the things I'm saying, because you need to be able to research the researcher. Like if I have a thesis, I need to be able to cite sources as to that can bolster my claims. So I'm not reading the news to you. I've been telling you that these things are going to happen for years. I use the news as a source so that you can go behind me and fact check the things that I'm saying. And if I'm lying, you can go and say, you know what? Nah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And as you can see, I damn sure know what I'm talking about. Now, to kind of put things into its proper perspective for you so that you can understand why I feel like the Fed can't raise rates for a prolonged period of time, because they will literally crash everything. This right here is the revenues, right? This is the revenue that the government takes in. Payroll taxes, individual income taxes, corporate taxes, and other, right? And this is for the year 2020. So we can see that the government takes in $3.4 trillion in 2020, and they spent $6.6 trillion, right? So clearly, they're not bringing in enough tax receipts to cover how much money they're spending. That's a $3.2 trillion deficit that they have to make up by borrowing. Now, think about this for a second. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. Look at their expenditures: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending. Now, ask yourself this question. With inflation, do you think the costs of taking care of elderly people will go down or will go up? Do you think that if you made these guarantees and these promises to people that they would put money into a retirement account and it would be there for them? What politician is going to be able to run on the backs of, I'm cutting Social Security, I'm cutting Medicare, and I'm cutting Medicaid? No politician is going to be able to do that and win against another politician saying to you, I'm going to give you these things. So you're going to have rising costs because of inflation. You're going to have rising costs because of demographics, because we have boomers, and because of technology, people are living longer. And right here, this is the interest right here, $345 billion. If the Fed raises rates, the interest payments will go up, will go higher. Why? Because the cost of money will rise. There's absolutely no way that the Fed can raise interest rates for a prolonged period of time without impacting the government in a major way in regards to the ability to borrow. Then when you start thinking about the fact that the Fed is talking about what? Quantitative tightening, meaning that they're going to pull back them going into the marketplace and monetizing government debt and buying government debt. Now, again, do you believe that the Fed's going to be able to stop buying government debt? Buying treasuries? I don't, especially after the rest of the world is watching what they just did to Russia by locking them off. Because remember, treasuries are supposed to be deemed pristine collateral, the best collateral to hold. Well, if you're in a situation now where if you do something that NATO doesn't like, or the UN doesn't like, or the IMF doesn't like, or that the West doesn't like, that they can sanction you and take your FX reserves or take your treasuries, do you think that China and Russia are going to want to buy treasuries? No, they're not. So the rest of the world is trying to de-dollarize and move away from the dollar. And this is what you're starting to happen. And this is why Bitcoin is going to be extremely important, because Bitcoin does not belong to any one nation. It is truly money without rulers. It is permissionless. It is borderless. This is why I'm telling you, more and more countries, they're starting to see that the West is unstable and they're looking for alternatives to the West. And when you look at this debt clock right here and you watch our national debt at $30 trillion, I just want you to think about that for a second. I want you to think about that for a second. I want you to really think about that. How are we going to pay that? How? Look at this. These numbers, they just keep ticking, 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 ticking. And then when you look at Social Security liability and Medicare liability and unfunded liabilities, the debt explodes. So the only way out of this is to monetize debt. And then now you have people promoting the idea, right, that somehow we have modern monetary theory, that because our debt is denominated in our own currency, that we could just print as much money as we want. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Now, look what Willie Market said. Crypto cannot replace because it is not backed by commodities. If the world is an even playing field, then who will work labor jobs? That doesn't even make any sense. You're asking two different questions. Number one, the market dictates what money is going to be. Money does not have to be backed by a physical asset. And Menger said that if you go back and you actually study Austrian economics, it's stated that the marketplace determines what money is. Not you, not I, not a politician, not a government, but through consensus. How does Bitcoin reach consensus? By having multiple parties determine what the current state of the chain is going to be. The market determines what money is going to be. You don't tell the market what money is going to be. If you have a true free market, money could be beads, it could be shells, it could be bullets, it could be cattle, right? The problem with commodities is that the reason why commodity money doesn't work is because commodities can spoil, commodities can rot, commodities can be restricted to a particular region in the world. So commodity money never made sense in the first place, right? But the marketplace, I got to the point where they agreed on it, right? Because if cattle is money, well, cattle can spoil, they can die, right? You can have, a disease run through your flock and they die, right? Or you can have technology that makes it easy to find that particular commodity, and then now you have inflation, right? Because if I can find gold or if I can find oil easier, then we have inflation. What happens when we start mining asteroids and we pull gold from asteroids, right? So this idea of having commodity money as if it's better doesn't make any sense, right? Money has to be something that is scarce, easily divisible, and easily transportable. Gold doesn't do that for you. So, but I digress. So now, right on cue, something interesting came out the other day, right? Where we had Joe Biden speaking, and he was talking about that inflation isn't the Fed's problem. That inflation isn't happening because of money printing. That inflation isn't happening because of years and years of bad monetary policy, but it's happening because of Putin and because of the economy reopening, which I want you to think about this for a second. Again, the definition of inflation is more dollars, more money, chasing equal goods or less goods. Now let's listen to him.
Look, we all know that despite the progress we made, families are still struggling. They're struggling with higher prices. As I said, I grew up in a family where the price of gas went up. Everybody's felt it. You talked about it. It mattered. It mattered. But let's be absolutely clear about why prices are so high right now. They're very high for two reasons, notwithstanding what the Republicans say. COVID, number one. What happened was, the way the global economy works, if a factory in Taiwan makes computer chips, shuts down because of COVID, it causes a ripple effect that can slow down the manufacturing in Detroit, which it did. One hitch can hold up everything.
Now, I'm glad he just said this, right? Because this just really sparked something in my mind. This is the problem with globalization. See, the elites like to sell you this idea that we need free trade. We need open trade everywhere, open borders. We don't need borders, right? We don't need to keep manufacturing in-house. We don't need to build things here. We can let China build everything or let India build everything. Understand, it's just simple game theory. The wider you make your manufacturing base, the more you open yourself up to external factors. Because now you're depending on goods to come from China. You're depending on your chips to come from another country. So now you have to worry about, number one, are they tampering with those chips? And we know this happened with Huawei and the devices, where China was playing with the chips in a way that they could spy on people with those devices. But then, so now you have a national security problem by putting your manufacturing base overseas. Then you have a slave labor problem because now you have people over there working for garbage wages. You then lose manufacturing base here, so you lose jobs here. And then in the event if something happens, you don't have enough in-house capacity in your country to be able to meet demand. But see, they only sell you the pros of globalization by saying to you, well, you get cheaper prices. Well, what good is it to get cheaper prices if you can't afford to buy anything because of inflation? So this is one of the biggest problems and one of the ugly truths that no one wants to tell you about globalization. And this is one of the biggest reasons why liberals are the worst. Again, I'm not going to let the conservatives off the hook, but liberals are liars. And they love to, they literally like look you in the face and lie. Like he's going to try to sit up here and tell you that somehow, yeah, well, you know, it's a factory over there. Yeah, it's a factory over there that's having problems. And then the money printing more dollars, chasing fewer goods.
Because of the pandemic, we've had disruption in our supply chain materials and important materials. At the same time, the strength and speed of our economic recovery and families making more money still kept up. So here you had the unusual situation. During the pandemic, people had money to spend. But what they didn't do is they didn't want to go to restaurants. They didn't want to go out and go on vacations. They didn't spend money on leisure activities. So they wanted to.
Again, another lie. He said that people had more money to spend, but they didn't want to go out and spend it. That's a lie. Number one, people did not have more money to spend. And number two, it's not that people did not want to go out. You and local governments and state governments shut everything down. Let me repeat that again. He wants you to believe that people had more money to spend, right? But they were so afraid that they didn't go outside that they stayed in the house. Is that true? No. What actually happened is that they shut everything down and you could not do anything. So you couldn't go to work if you wanted to. You couldn't go out to eat if you wanted to. And bankrupted so many small businesses that will never return again. So again, liberals are liars. Repeat after me. Liberals are liars.
Spend it on other things, on hard goods, home improvements, televisions, additions to their homes. The very products are slowed down by disruption of the supply chain because there weren't people cutting 2x4s because of COVID. They were shut down. I could go on and list, you all know this. I'm preaching to the choir here. So what happened? Prices went up exponentially. Just take a look at automobiles last year. 1/3 of all the inflation in America last year was because of the price of automobiles. People had the money to buy automobiles, finally. But because the companies couldn't get semiconductors, they couldn't make the automobiles. As a result, the price of automobiles skyrocketed. And used cars, the reason used cars went up because when the COVID hit and the leisure industry shut down, the rental cars sold all their stock. So people were in real trouble. The second big reason for inflation is Vladimir Putin. From the moment he put his over 150,000 troops on the Ukrainian border, the price of gasoline in January went up 75 cents.
Well, let's take him at his word. Let's look at the CPI right here from when he came into office. He came into office January 2021, right? Well, this is the CPI. Putin didn't attack the Ukraine until what? About a month ago? So why has inflation every single month, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, and February? Every single year, inflation has, every single month, inflation has risen. See, at a certain point, you have to just say to yourself that these people are liars. Now, you know me. I look at the Republican and the Democrats as just the left and right wing of the same bird flying towards the same destination. I do not think that the conservatives are that much better in terms of like being conservative or Republican. But at least their policies tend to align with benefiting you better than liberals. This is just a flat out lie, right? Because looking at the CPI data, you can see every single month inflation was higher than it was the previous year, year over year. But yet somehow he wants you to believe that is only happening because of Putin. It's only happening because of Putin. There's no other reason why we're having inflation. It's only Putin the reason why we're having inflation. And that's a lie. It's not true. It's factually not true. But again, this is what happens when and then we don't have media in this. We don't really have true journalism in this country. We have propaganda. If you watch CNN, they're going to give you one spin. If you watch Fox, they're going to give you another spin. No one's just giving you the objective data, the objective facts, and letting you come to your own conclusion. He just said that, you know the real reason for inflation? Putin and the economy opening back up. Well, the CPI says differently. The CPI says we were experiencing inflation months before Putin did anything. Straight up lies. Right? Now, when we come here and we listen to what he said before, and I want you guys to listen to this. He wants you to believe, right, that we will print more money. Again, see, this is important that you understand. This is from July 22nd, 2021. He said that if we print more money, we will reduce inflation. Again, this is 8 months ago. Let's listen to him.
Inflation is temporary, but if you're pumping all of this money into the economy, couldn't that be pretty confident that inflation is temporary? But if you're pumping all of this money into the economy, couldn't that add to?
No, look, here's the deal. Moody's today, when a Wall Street firm, not some liberal think tank, said if we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will in fact reduce inflation, because they're going to be providing good opportunities and jobs for people who in fact are going to be reinvesting that money back in all the things we're talking about, driving down prices, not raising prices. And so it is, I sincerely mean this. Prices are up now. And they're up for example, you're in a position where you're trying to build a house, try to find 2x4s and lumber. Well, guess what? People stopped working cutting lumber. They stopped doing it because the unemployment was so down. Now, all of a sudden, there's this need because people are coming back. And guess what? Instead of paying 10 cents, you're paying 20.
I'm glad you just said that, Magic 111th. He said Putin plus COVID. That's not why we're experiencing inflation. We're experiencing inflation because the government printed money out of thin air. We're experiencing inflation because the Federal Reserve injected trillions upon trillions of dollars into the economy. That's why we're experiencing inflation. It's a monetary policy. It's a monetary phenomenon. It's not happening because the economy was locked down. It's happening because of bad policy, bad fiscal policy, and bad monetary policy. That's why we're having inflation. COVID has nothing to do with it. It's all about monetary policy. Notice he's not one time stated we're having inflation because we printed money. We're having inflation because the Fed injected trillions of dollars into the stock market, into the financial economy. He's not said that one time. See, COVID is the pen that pops the bubble. It's the same thing that happened in 2008. Whenever you print this much money, you create dislocations in the economy. And then when the bubble pops, you try to reinflate the bubble, but you need double the debt to reinflate the bubble. That becomes the problem. And see, what happens is that the money printing only benefits those closest to the money printer. This is known as the Cantillon effect. So therefore, those who are in financial markets, those who own real estate, those who own stocks, tends to do better than working everyday people who are the taxpayers. See, right now, if you're an investor, you don't care about inflation. Why? Because inflation benefits asset holders. And then also, the problem with this is that this is pure propaganda. He just said, if we print more money, we will reduce inflation 8 months ago. But they printed more money and we have inflation. So which one is it? See, at a certain point, we have to start trying to play mental gymnastics and just simply take things for what they are. He said printing money will reduce inflation. They printed money. We got inflation. Jerome Powell said inflation is transitory. Here we are now. He's saying no, inflation is much higher than what it was. Which one is it? At a certain point, we have to take a step back and just take things for what they are. This is propaganda. They're lying to you. And if you keep believing these people, you're going to be broke. They are hell-bent on destroying the dollar. They are hell-bent on bringing in a digital currency. They are hell-bent on having this vertical integration where they can control and monitor everything from top to bottom. And if you don't get on board and start paying attention to what's happening and start putting together a life raft and putting together a plan, you're going to wake up on the land that your ancestors built with nothing. Now is not the time to sit up here and try to convince yourself that you're not hearing what you're hearing. Now's the time to say to yourself, this is the problem. And right on cue, what I wanted to play was Kim Iverson, where she was talking about that they're using TikTokers. See, and this goes back to a lot of things that I talked to you about propaganda and the book 1984 and Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, and why I want all of my students to read that book. And I stress to you guys, read these books. Because see, if you read these books, you're well ahead of the game and you can see propaganda. They invited a bunch of influencers from TikTok, a Chinese-owned company, might I add, to come and learn about why inflation's going up. And they're telling you that inflation's going up because of Vladimir Putin. Now understand, TikTokers are not journalists. They're influencers. But they have huge influence over younger people who all they do is sit on these devices all day long and consume content. So if you can get a bunch of dumbass TikTokers to convince their dumbass followers that inflation isn't happening because of monetary policy, but because of Putin, then it becomes truth. Because if you allow the truth to get out there, then if you allow lies to get out there and they're not challenged in any way, then they become truth.
It's on your radar.
Well, last Thursday, 30 TikTok influencers were invited to a White House Zoom call for a press briefing about the war in Ukraine and rising gas prices. The social media stars were briefed by National Security Council staffers and Jen Psaki, where they were basically told inflation is Putin's fault. The goal of the White House is obvious. It's to get their messaging or propaganda out to the younger generations who consume most of their information through the platform. Ironically, it's a Chinese-owned platform, but that's a different story for a different day. The briefing seemed to work. Shortly after, many TikTokers began, I think that's what they're called these days, right? TikTokers began posting videos about their invitation and what they learned. So here's an example.
Why is gas so expensive, and why is the United States inflation rate at a 4-time decade high? I had the opportunity to ask the White House why gas down the street is $7, and here's what they said. The obvious reason: we are getting out of a 2-year pandemic. When use goes up, price goes up. But the call was predominantly about Ukraine and Russia, so how does that relate? Russia is one of the top 3 producers of oil, and it is actually their #1 revenue source. Now, with Putin starting this horrific fight between Ukraine and Russia, nobody wants to work with him and do international trade. So, with people being scared of war and limited resources, prices are bound to go up as well. For the people who can't pay $7 for a gallon of gas, there's an app called Gas Buddy that shows you the cheapest gas near you, as well as a link in my bio to donate to the misplaced refugees of Ukraine.
According to them, one reason that this crisis is specifically notable is because of the size of the invasion, which is the largest since World War II.
Unlike other press briefings who they invited, they likely sorted through numerous
But they said.
All right, so obviously with only 30 TikTok influencers involved, the White House was selective on who they invited. They likely sorted through numerous accounts to find those who were most likely going to hear the White House's explanations and ultimately parrot them. So this would be unlike other press briefings where even hostile news organizations could be in the room, and in the end, what they report on and how they spin it is up to them. The White House knows each time they do a press briefing, Fox is going to walk away with one spin to the story while CNN has another. So the entire idea of a curated friendly group calls the ethics of this into question, except are TikTok influencers journalists? Because if they are, then it's a scandal to only invite the friendly ones. But if they're just entertainers, then is it really any different than picking and choosing celebrity sponsors who then promote products or ideas?
Now, let's just stop it right there. I want you to think about this for a second. So, out of all of the people who are influencers on the internet, why did they pick young millennial, or probably younger than millennial, TikTok influencers? Why wouldn't they pick someone like a Peter Schiff? Why wouldn't they bring on a Joe Rogan, right? Notice that they tried to go after people who would more likely be receptive to their information or propaganda versus people that would challenge their propaganda. Now, again, let's look back at everything that I presented to you so far. We have the Fed telling you it's transitory back in July, inflation, and then now they're coming out and saying to you, oh my God, inflation's higher than we expected and will be here longer than expected. Yet, I was raising these questions a year ago, 2 years ago. Why is it that I can see these things before they happen, but people who went to the best schools, have the highest education, have 20, 30 years in the industry, they can't see it? The reason is because we have propaganda in this country as serving as journalism and media. We don't really truly have people who are just trying to inform you and give you information and allowing you to sit with information. We have people who are constantly putting their twist and spin on information. And again, when you have kids who they don't know how to use discernment and actually parse through information and comprehend information, because see, it's one thing to listen to something or watch something. It's another thing to understand what you're listening to or comprehend what you're reading. This is why you need to be informed with books like 1984, Behold a Pale Horse, Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, to understand how propaganda works and how it can be facilitated. Thank you for the donation, JT. Everyone go check out JT's channel. He said, hey, Eli, great content. Is going to get worse before it gets better. Absolutely. Which is why it's important for you to not listen to the things that I'm saying, but to go up and read the things that I'm saying and inform yourself. This is why I tell you guys, research the researcher. Don't listen to me. Take the information and you go fact check it for yourself and see if what I'm saying is actually true. JT does a beautiful job breaking down. I think he had a live the other day talking about the recession and saying that you're not prepared for the recession. And the true thing is, many of you guys are not prepared for the recession because you're listening to people telling you that everything's going to be okay or that there is no problem. And then you get caught flat-footed because you're not prepared, right? If you fail to prepare, then prepare to fail. Now, the next thing I wanted to get into was the Fed and quantitative tightening, right? Because what the Fed wants you to believe, they want you to believe that right now their balance sheet right here is at $9 trillion, right? And they want you to believe that they're going to be able to go into the market and sell all of these assets that they've been buying. Because what the Fed has literally, not making this up, they have printed money and they went and they purchased treasuries, junk bonds, mortgage-backed securities. So the Fed is being the lender and the buyer of last resort. Literally, they're lending money out. They're buying everything up because no one wants to buy all of this junk. So they're buying it. And they want you to believe that somehow they're going to be able to reduce their balance sheet and get these assets off their balance sheets either by letting them mature or by selling them back into the marketplace. Now, I want you to understand, look at this. This is from 2008. What happened in 2008? 2008. Hold on, did I get disconnected? Looks like I got disconnected. Can you guys still hear me though? Can you guys hear me even though you can't see me? Great. So, from 2008 right here, what happened in 2008? In 2008, we had the Great Recession. When we had the Great Recession, the Fed had to print money, Ben Bernanke, to bail everyone out. So, boom, we get this hockey stick. Now, Ben Bernanke, and don't worry, I'm about to play his own words for you. He said, once the economy gets normal, we're going to reduce the balance sheet and we're going to sell all of these toxic assets that we purchased from the banks. These bad mortgages that we bought from the banks, we're going to be able to unwind them. Well, look what happened to their balance sheet. It went up and up and up and up and up and up, and then boom, we get the hockey stick. And it continues to keep rising over and over again. Now, let's listen to what Ben Bernanke said back in 2009.
Is that tax money that the Fed is spending?
It's not tax money. The banks have accounts with the Fed much the same way that you have an account in a commercial bank. So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
You've been printing money.
Well, effectively, and we need to do that because our economy is very weak and inflation is very low. When the economy begins to recover, that'll be the time that we need to unwind those programs, raise interest rates, reduce the money supply, and make sure that we have a recovery that does not involve inflation.
He's not kidding about printing money. The Fed issues U.S. currency. That's why it says Federal Reserve Note on all the bills in your wallet. This is the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, just a few blocks from Bernanke's office. The Fed's mandate from Congress is to put...
So, just so you can understand that I'm not lying, not spreading conspiracy theories, that he said that they were going to reduce the balance sheet. Well, here we are, and the balance sheet has not been reduced. That 60-minute special was from 2009. Here we are in 2022, and we're looking at a $9 trillion balance sheet. $9 trillion. So again, either these people are incompetent and they don't know what they're talking about and they don't know what they're doing and they're literally getting paid to get it wrong, or this is being done by design. Whichever conclusion you want to arrive at, that's not for me to argue. That's not for me to debate. What you need to start understanding is that there's a problem here. There's a major problem here. And what you should be doing is starting to figure out ways that you can prepare for what's going to happen. And this is what I'm going to leave you guys with before I take some questions. This is a tweet from Jeff Booth. He is the author of the book, The Price of Tomorrow. All of my students know that this is required reading for being in the academy. Jeff Booth states, he made this tweet back at 1:34 a.m., July 1st, 2020. He stated, in the game Monopoly, once enough properties are owned by a single player, renters can't afford to pay rents and are therefore forced into bankruptcy and the game ends. For those who have played, you will notice how the system works, i.e., once you have an early advantage, the game becomes easier because you have the rents to acquire more properties, add more houses/hotels. A positive feedback loop is created, concentrating wealth. Because think about it, you had an unfair advantage because you won the game, right? You have an advantage, and now you get to get more and more and more property, right? and you start to concentrate the wealth. You might also notice that the wealth in the game might be due to luck. Landing on the right squares early in the game gives you a massive advantage. Right place, right time. Similar to boomers having more wealth than us because they were able to live through more bubbles and acquire real estate than millennials and younger. Conversely, missing out on acquiring those assets early creates a negative feedback loop, which reinforces on itself. The poor become poorer until they become insolvent as they move around the board paying higher and higher rents. Notice that as you're living, because you didn't get a chance to buy that property, buy that brownstone when it was $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, now you're living in places like New York, LA, Chicago, and most of that real estate is controlled by wealthy people. So now you keep moving from place to place, city to city, and you keep having to pay higher and higher rents. Why? Because you didn't get to play the game early. You didn't get to land on the right squares early. You didn't get to participate in the wealth transfers early. The elites did, the wealthy did, the boomers did, not you. Fortunately, it is just a game. The game ends. Someone gets bragging rights, and all are given a fresh chance to win the game when a new game begins. Everyone is equal. But what would happen if the same positive and negative feedback loops happened in life, with the winners acquiring ever more because they had the assets first, concentrating their wealth and enjoying privileged access to the best education, medical, and other services? And for the sake of argument, let's imagine in this life's game that there was a giant force, let's call it a central bank, that would not let asset prices fall, which only concentrated wealth faster and wouldn't allow a reset of the game where new players had a chance. Right now, I want you to think about this. This goes back to the Cantillon effect. The people who sit the closest to the money printer tends to spend the inflation first, and they tend to do better. Why? Because when money is printed, it is put into the financial economy first. So therefore, when the government steps in and bails out General Motors, who does that benefit? When they step, who does it benefit first? It benefits the asset holders first. The workers don't get the benefit till later on if they're lucky enough to not get laid off. But then the benefit is short-lived because even if they don't get laid off, inflation happens. So their cost of living goes up. Inflation only benefits asset holders. It does not benefit savers and common day working people. He states, how long would the losers of the game keep playing the game when they realize that the game was rigged against them? What if they couldn't pay their rents, medical bills, education with the game continuing to get worse? What if the game wouldn't end for them? Your life doesn't end for you. It keeps going. What would they do? More importantly, if you were them, what would you do? You might listen and elect leaders who tell you they will give you free money without asking where that money comes from. What just happened with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris when they were looking to get elected? Trump was the boogeyman. He was the evil, racist, white supremacist that we had to get out of office. And if we just put Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in office, everything would be taken care of. Free healthcare, free education, free tuition, child tax credits, you name it, they would tell you, forgiveness on your student loans, and none of these things happened. The societal consequences of changing the rules of the game to stop the natural clearing function of markets and lock new players out is making the world ever more dangerous. The consequences are very predictable. In 12, and the crazy thing is, the same thing central bankers are fighting against, prices falling, because of exponentially advancing technology, might be the best game we ever played. I encourage you guys to go out here and read the book, The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. It is an amazing book for those of you who are looking to become informed as to what's happening and why the Fed tries so hard to create inflation and they are afraid of deflation because of this debt-based system and this fractional reserve-based lending system that we live in. It is important that you educate yourself. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to CNN. Don't listen to CNBC. Don't listen to Bloomberg. Simply look at what's happening in front of you take the breadcrumbs and information that's presented to you and arrive at your own conclusion. But like I said before, I'm not a Johnny come lately. I've been sitting here talking about this stuff for years, right? I talked about, the eviction crisis is coming and it's part of the Great Reset. I've been talking about these things for a very, very, very long time, right? China continues to manipulate Americans. The Fed just announced quantitative easing forever. The Fed cut the reserve requirement to 0%. I've been talking to you about these things for years. I am not new to this. I am definitely true to this. I've been doing this for a very, very long time, which is why I can predict what's going to happen, because history doesn't repeat itself, but it damn sure rhymes. With that being said, I'll take a few of you guys' questions, and we can go from there. I saw that someone made a donation earlier. The thing was moving faster and faster. The chat was moving so fast where you guys were asking me, what do I think about ApeCoin? And I actually like ApeCoin. I think ApeCoin is good. I was one of the first people who was talking up to you about the what's the name? I was talking to you guys about NFTs and the power of NFTs. And I think that the Bored Apes were done properly in regards to you actually owning the intellectual property, the way that the back end is set up for the NFT, that, that the person can't just go and like change the image and things of that nature. And the fact that they're creating a brand around the NFT where it's not just a piece of art, right? But you're literally buying into a brand. And now that brand came out and it's worth $2 billion today. It's a baby. I think that the Bored Ape is going to do amazing. They also have a game coming out with it. And also the way they launched the token was amazing. The fact that within a 4-hour span, it was on every single exchange. So everyone had an equal opportunity to buy the token. It wasn't like they allowed, a small group of insiders to buy up 90% of the supply and then put 10% of the supply on the market so you could be the exit liquidity and then dump on you. Everyone had a chance to go out here and buy it. And then it was pretty good, man. And only 15% or 10%, I think, was given to the actual Bored Ape holders. So across the board, I'm a huge fan of it. I was able to get into it around like $3.50, $3.50, $4, because it crashed from 39. Last time I checked, it was at 9. Let's see where it's at right now. It's at 9.57, 10.58. So I'm making hella money in this thing. I believe in another thing I told you guys about DAOs. One thing about crypto moves in cycles, right? So first Bitcoin takes off, then Ethereum takes off, then all of the Ethereum competitors and killers, they start to take off. Then it's about the layer 2s. The next thing you know, it becomes all about these different, DGen, DeFi plays, Yearn Finance, Cream Finance, Convex Finance. Then we move to, the NFT space, the NFT platforms. Then the next thing is to take off would be like the gaming platforms, Axie Infinity, Play to Earn gaming. And then the only thing that really didn't get a chance to really boom were DAOs, right? And I think that DAOs are definitely the next boom is going to be DAOs. And look at this, $11.31. So I'm making shit ton money right now, which is a good thing. I think that this thing is going to do really, really well. I think it's going to probably make a run towards maybe $30, $40. It's probably going to push to the top 10, is what my thinking is. If follow me here, if we don't get any shocks with Russia, Ukraine, the Fed, et cetera, if the market remains the same, we could get a run up to $30. Now, again, if the crypto markets start to roll over, everything's going to tank. But I think that this can try to make a run towards the top 10. Right now, it's in what spot? It's in 45. I can see this thing making a run up to probably 25, 20. Right? I can see us getting to $20, $25. I'll be looking to sell at 30. Oh, you can buy it everywhere. You can buy it on Uniswap, SushiSwap. Literally, they launched this thing perfectly. I can't say to you enough that they did a perfect job here. I'll start looking to take profit at around $20, $25 is where I'm looking to. I'll start selling half of what I have. I got it at a good price. Family travel history says, how do you create an NFT? Join my tech academy. I have an entire course about NFTs. I even show you how to create an NFT from scratch using Photoshop and different layers and being able to mix those layers together. The next half of our NFT course, which will be coming out in 2 weeks, is going to be how to properly buy and what to look for when you're buying NFTs. But literally, I cover everything for you for NFTs inside of our course. And we have a free 3-day trial. And yes, I'm plugging my course because I truly believe in what I put together is by far better than most of the stuff out here. 90% of the stuff that I've come across. What do I think about Telcoin? Telcoin is one of my largest positions. I love Telcoin. I've been in Telcoin for a very, very long time. I've made a lot of good money in Telcoin. I have not sold not one coin yet. Real Talk TV, I have no promotions going on right now. We had a lifetime membership promotion going on. It was $3,000. The price of a lifetime membership now is $4,000. That's because we have other instructors in the academy that will be creating their own courses for the stock market and trading stocks and stuff like that. Zero Cool is putting that together. So we have to raise the prices so that he can get paid for his intellectual property and for his time. He puts in a lot of work in the group and he deserves to be paid. So we're going to have other instructors as well besides him. It's not just going to be me. So we have to raise the prices. If you want quality education, if you want quality actionable information, you have to pay for it. Now, the beautiful thing is a lot of you could not pay the $3,000 up front. We now have financing through PayPal. And PayPal gives you 0% interest for 6 months. So, 6 months to pay for a lifetime membership. Take advantage of it. What's going on, Royal? Good question, JT. I don't know anything about the Breakfast Club NFT, but I will tell you that if it's anything like what we've witnessed from most celebrities and most celebrity platforms, they're really just cashing in on their brand and they're looking to get you to buy it because they are the Breakfast Club. The most important thing with an NFT, there has to be utility behind it, meaning that you're buying it because of the value that happens behind it. So, for example, Nas had the NFT with his music, where 2 songs on his album were NFTs. So therefore, you could participate in the revenue earned with the actual NFT. Also, he had like exclusive merch, exclusive concert tickets, and things of that nature built into the NFT. So therefore, there's a aftermarket to sell it. I haven't looked into the Breakfast Club's NFT, but when I'm done with this, I'll definitely look into it because that's future content. I would tell you that what I've seen with a lot of these celebrity-based NFTs, whether it was Tory Lanez, the girl Lana Rhodes, many of the Jake Paul things, a lot of it's just, I'm Jake Paul, I'm the Breakfast Club, buy this NFT, and you could come meet Charlemagne. Like, what value does that truly have in the economy? Being able to own someone's content and being able to get that revenue from that content is really, really, really important, in my personal opinion. Also, being able to own it from the standpoint of if that person dies, think about, again, not wishing death on anyone, but imagine owning Michael Jackson's catalog, for example, like 5 songs from Michael Jackson that you owned and he passed away. Like, to me, that's the value of an NFT, like really owning a digital good versus like the Breakfast Club stuff. I wouldn't trust anything coming from the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club has been notorious for allowing a lot of fast-talking con artists to come on their platform. They've been horrible when it comes to political candidates and the questions that they ask individuals. So I would be very, 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 very leery of buying anything from them or investing in anything that they're associated with. But I definitely have to look into it. I don't know too much about it, JT. Thank you for the donation, Fantasy Hustlers. I don't know if you had a question behind that. Joel Hogan, understand that the value of Bitcoin, you're basing the value of Bitcoin based upon US dollars. The purpose of Bitcoin is neutral money, right? I think a lot of you get caught up into the dollar value of Bitcoin, right? And because you're basing it in US dollars. What he's talking about is that the fact that, okay, you cannot participate in certain wealth transfers because you're not close to the money printer. What Bitcoin is neutral money from the standpoint of that there's no individual who's determining how much Bitcoin is in circulation and who that Bitcoin goes to. Everyone has a fair chance at participating within the system, meaning that we're not going to wake up tomorrow and Satoshi goes, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to bail out John because his institution has 50,000 employees and he's a part of this particular club. We know what the monetary policy is going to be going forward. We know that there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. We know what the inflation schedule is for that Bitcoin. So we know that we're dealing with a new true monetary policy. That's the regards into what Bitcoin is designed to do. Not in regards to how much a Bitcoin is worth, because once we get to maturity in Bitcoin, we're not going to have these wild fluctuations and swings up and down in Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin is a baby. The market cap of Bitcoin is, $769 billion. It's a baby compared to something like gold. That's a $10 to $12 trillion asset class. Right? So you understand that you're looking at Bitcoin like being like gold, for example. Why is gold money, right? The price of gold goes up, the price of gold goes down, depending on which currency you're converting it into, right? There's certain currencies that gold is going up in, and there's other currencies that gold may be going down in. If you're pricing it in different currencies, it's the same thing like Bitcoin, right? So you shouldn't be worried. See, we're looking at Bitcoin as a speculative asset, not a store of value, right? So for people like you and I, because we have a relatively stable currency, and I use it in quotes, we're speculating on the price of Bitcoin, meaning that we're looking to buy it at 10 and sell it at 100, right? For other fiat dollars. That's what you're looking to do. You're looking to speculate. When something is a currency, you're not really looking to speculate in it because it gets to a point where it becomes stable, right? So because if your currency is swinging 20%, 30%, 40% every day, is it really a currency? Absolutely not. The whole idea of something being a currency is that it's stable, right? Now, what you could start to see is that some currencies could be backed by Bitcoin, similar to how currencies are backed by gold. That could be something in the future. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is looking to be money, or what is intentionally what people want it to be. What do I think about QuickSwap? I have a large position in QuickSwap. I think that QuickSwap is grossly undervalued. Let's see, let's pull it up. QuickSwap is at $174. When you look at the fact that is what the market cap is $57 million, the market cap is extremely tiny. The total value locked is $755 million. So clearly there's more liquidity locked in the protocol than the protocol is worth. So I look at this as a divergence, a positive divergence from the standpoint of if there's more value locked in here than the actual token is worth, that means that we have a lot of room to run to the upside. And when you just simply look at this from the standpoint that it peaked at $1,400 and is trading at $174, it's a no-brainer. And then when you come here and you look at if we go here, QuickSwap, let's see what they're paying out right now. Let's see what the APY is. It's not telling me what the APY is right now. It's loading. See what the APY, what they're paying out per day. Let's go here. Let's see. If we go here and we go over to the where's that? Where's the Polygon mainnet? All right, we switch to Polygon. So right here, they're paying 39% right now to stake it. So you can earn 39% right now to stake over here. So I think that it's a no-brainer to definitely stake some coins over here. Definitely something that I would want to look into. I have a large position over here in multiple different wallets. So absolutely no-brainer for me. I've been in QuickSwap for a while, and I plan on being in it for a while and staking over here. What else is you guys talking about? Let's see what else you guys got. Take some of you guys' questions. What are my thoughts on precious metals? I like silver because of the benefits that it has in electronics, that it has industrial uses, and that if you look at the gold to silver ratio, Gold has tended to get more of the investment opportunity than silver did. So I think that silver will do a lot better than gold long term. In my opinion, I believe that you need to own. You guys know I own gold. I don't know where my gold's at. Where's all my gold at? That's weird. I always have my gold box here. I don't know what I did with it. I have so much gold all over the place. Look at me. That's how you start getting too much money. You just leaving gold, just laying gold coins laying everywhere. I had a whole bunch of silver coins. Let's clean my office up. But yeah, I'm a huge bull on precious metals. I'm just more bullish on crypto. I think that crypto gives you it's mobile money, it's more portable, it's easier to hide than walking around with a bunch of gold bars, silver bars. But I do think that gold and silver definitely has a place, because what we know now is that if your money's sitting in a bank account, you don't own your money, you're renting it. What the government did to Russia, what happened to the truckers, shows you that you don't own your money. You don't own your bank deposits. You don't own your stock certificates. Anything that's sitting on a third party's platform or on a centralized exchange or in a bank account somewhere can be confiscated. So hard money is your money. And we're getting to the point where it's important to own your money or own your net worth. So having a percentage of your wealth in precious metals, is nothing wrong with that. I just tend to have more of my wealth in crypto because I think that gold is a mature asset class where crypto is a new asset class. So you're going to get 10, 15, 20 times on your money. So you get capital appreciation as well as quote unquote store of value. So listen to what I is Sambi, I'm assuming, or Ambi saying. Stated, how is owning a Michael Jackson NFT different from owning a vinyl or a CD album? Well, number one, we're not comparing an NFT to something physical. NFTs are compared to something digital. That's number one. Because we live in a digital world now. And the problem with the digital world that we live in is that everything is controlled and owned by Apple. So you may own a song, but the problem is, number one, you do not get to participate in the revenue generated from that music. And number two, at any moment, if Apple deems you to be unworthy to be on their platform, they can remove you. The whole purpose of NFTs is it gives you digital ownership of the actual good or service that's a digital item. Not that you, not to compete with something that's physical, right? The whole purpose of cryptocurrencies is for digital ownership, removing middlemen. Because see, what happened is cryptographers, people like Nick Szabo, Hal Finney, they've been sitting around and they've been realizing that we're moving closer and closer to a cashless society, to a digital world where these central entities like Facebook, like a Google, like a Microsoft, they have so much control over what you see, what you think, your money, your information, your data, your privacy, and so much more. We don't live in a world anymore that's physical, right? Most people I know don't listen to vinyl records and they don't have 8-track players. Most people I know, they have, Beats, or they have, AirPods. Like, they live in a digital world, right? They have Apple Music or Google Music. But the problem is that they don't own these goods. They don't own those services, but they buy them. What crypto is allowing you to do is, in this digital world, have some say and control over your money and over your digital items and over your identity and who and what you are and how much of that you want to give away. So that's the difference. I hope that makes sense for you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people love to be like sarcastic, and they like to come on here and try to make it like, oh, what's the difference you having a vinyl record? Well, you have a vinyl record. Uh, Someone asked about Luna Terra. To me, Luna Terra is more of a Ponzi scheme. And see what a lot of you guys have to understand about crypto is a lot of these things, they have Ponzi economics where like they operate because they're so complex. You don't know what's going to be the pin, similar to the Federal Reserve. You don't know what's going to be the pin to pop the bubble, right? And because you're dealing with, again, assets that don't really have owners, once it's exploited in a certain way, it just goes to shit. So this is why it's important that you be careful with those things, because see, in the traditional financial system, if a problem happens, then you have the Fed to step in and bail someone out and print up a bunch of money to plug the hole. In crypto, if something goes wrong, it just goes wrong. It goes to zero, like what happened with Titan Finance with Mark Cuban. So when I see things like Terra Luna, and they can guarantee you 20%, and most of it's algorithmic, and how these things are happening, and the peg to UST, be very, very careful, is what I would say to you guys, because when things happen in crypto, there's no one to bail you out. And I've learned very, very quickly, if there's smoke, there's fire in crypto. Trust me when I tell you. My market direction going forward, maybe for the next week or two, we kind of trade sideways. I still believe that we're going to test $30,000 Bitcoin, and I believe that we're going to test $1,700 or $2,000 Ethereum. We have to flush out certain money and test certain price levels again to see if there's real demand at those price levels. One thing about markets is that they always come back and test prior levels to see, because remember that a market is just an auction. You know, the guys were like, $5, $5 going once, $5 going twice. That's essentially what a market is. You're matching buyers and sellers up together. That's auction market theory. So effectively, what you're trying to see is that, is the market overvalued at these prices? Is it fairly valued? Is it balanced, or is it undervalued? So what happens a lot of times is that we have to come back down and test the level to see, is there enough demand there to move prices up to be neutral? And this is where you get the whole idea of technical analysis. Those are really just demand pockets where we're trying to see, if I take price down here, will demand, right, be greater than the selling pressure, is what you're trying to see, right? Right. So when people say support, that's really just simply seeing like is this a price where the market's undervalued? That like will buyers say to themselves, okay, based upon the auction that's happening, at this price is too low, I want to step in and buy here, is effectively what happens. Shiba Inu is absolute garbage. Are the bears or bulls in charge right now? The Dow looks like it's ready to break to all-time highs, crypto to follow. Absolutely right now, remember, because Wall Street's really, I wouldn't even say Wall Street's in, but the people from Wall Street that wants to be in, and they have so many hedges put on, a lot of asset classes trade in tandem with one another, right? You kind of get these ideas. And on Sunday, I'm going to go live and give you my overall view of how we get to the point where crypto breaks apart from that correlation right now to the stock market. But right now, crypto tends to track the stock market. Now, one thing you have to be careful with the stock market is that you kind of get people where they buy the rumor and sell the news. So watching the markets rally now could just be kind of a little bit of like kind of buying, like kind of getting everyone off balance. Like, oh, well, look, the Fed raised rates. That was already priced in. We expect it. And then next week, the dump comes. So that could be something that, happens. What I would say to you right now is, again, where I stand, we have to go lower, in my personal opinion. When that happens, could be next week, next month. No one knows. I would be lying to you if I told you at this time, this date, the market's going to roll over and touch this price. No one knows. Because if they did, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be a billionaire. Because I would just take my money and trade the markets. What I'm saying to you is that I just believe that based upon my experience in the markets, whenever we make an extreme low like that, very rarely do you see the market trade down with so much force, so much liquidations, and we don't go back down there and test that level again and test that demand area, that supply area, to see if there's enough demand there. Very rarely does that happen. It has to test it again. Very rarely do you just touch it one time and go back up. I haven't seen that. Mm-mm. Moonbeam being a top 25, I don't see it. I have a big position in Moonbeam. I told you guys about Moonbeam a while ago, a long time ago. I haven't checked Moonbeam in a while. No, I got it at a good price. Let's see what's happening with Moonbeam. 241, yeah, so kind of like right around the price where I got in at. And this is why it's important to be a part in the academy, right? This is why I love the academy, because Zero Cool, who's one of the admins in the Slack group, he was talking about how there was like a large amount of supply that was coming onto the market with Moonbeam back when it was up at like $6. And then, basically told a lot of students, like, watch out for it. Don't get involved in it right now because Moonbeam's going to dump a bunch of supply. Remember, supply and demand. If demand is equal, but a whole bunch of new supply comes in, you need more demand to come in to equal that supply. The supply overwhelmed the demand. Prices pushed down from $6. I was able to get in between like 240, 260-ish, stuff like that. So definitely a good project to look into. Market cap's only $485 million. At its peak, the market cap was able to be 1.6 billion. So we got some room to run. I mean, think about it. If we get to a $5 billion market cap, if we get to a $5 billion market cap, 10 times on your money. So definitely a good place to go. Absolutely, the academy is a beginner friendly. A link is in the description below to get into the academy. Definitely beginner friendly. We have monthly Q&As for those of you who want to ask beginning questions, and then we're going to start getting into some advanced stuff in the for the lifetime members. So we have a presentation coming up where I'm going to be teaching you guys about how to privately use Bitcoin and how to convert your crypto into fiat without going through centralized exchanges. That's definitely something that I'm going to be working on. No, I don't own any crypto domain names. I'm anti-crypto domain names. I think that they're stupid. I think that it gives up anonymity and it gives up your ability to obfuscate who you are. The whole purpose of crypto was for you to not give up your identity and let people be able to track you. So why would I want you to know my name is what happened to commonsense.eth? Like even PFP NFTs I think are stupid, right? Because if you have my address, then you can see everything I'm doing on the blockchain. So then you know how much crypto I have. You know when I spend crypto, when I receive crypto, right? That goes against the whole purpose of crypto, right? Like, why would you want to put your identity on your wallet, right? It makes no sense, right? So now if you just want to own them because you just want to flip them and sell them, that's one thing. But like, why would I want to have a person know all of the crypto that I hold? I think it's just stupid. It just doesn't make any sense for me. For me personally. So, Alexander Wilson says, Eli, I'm glad I was looking on your Instagram on my phone instead of on my work PC. Yeah. Yeah. When I go to Miami, it gets a little wild sometimes, Alexander. But thanks for thanks for the support. Thanks for the support. Listen, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Please do me a favor, like this, share this, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure that you set it to all. Make sure that you join my text message list so that I can text you when I'm going to go live. It comes straight to your phone. I'm also giving away $5,000 worth of crypto. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm giving away $5,000 worth of crypto. The only way for you to be able to know about the details is you have to text the word YouTube to the number below in the description. Please follow the instructions. Text the word YouTube to the number in my description and join my list. Also, I have a new Instagram page because my old Instagram page has been flagged and I can't go live or do anything on it. It is _CommonSense_Eli_. So it's Common Sense Eli with an underscore at the beginning and an underscore at the end. I would never text you first, nor do I trade stocks or Forex. I have My Tech Academy, which is an education platform, And you guys, you know about my investment opportunity. The minimum is $25,000. If you're interested in the investment opportunity I have, you DM me the word invest. I send you a video breaking down the investment. And then if you're interested, you send me yes, your name, email. I give you the contract. We go forward. Please watch out for scammers pretending to be me. It is very easy to clone my Instagram page and screenshot and download my videos. Please use discernment on the internet. When you and I do business, you are going to hop on a Zoom call with me. You and I are going to go over the contract. We're going to go over the deal and go forward from there. So again, please make sure that you're not getting scammed, that you're doing your due diligence out here. I do not want you guys out here getting burned. And Lou H says, what coins should I store on a Nano Ledger S? I don't use the Nano Ledger S. I know that they're limited in how many you can hold. I would say simply whatever coins they support, you should hold there. Most of your crypto should be on a ledger device like this. I use the Nano Ledger X. You're using the S. That's the smaller one, I'm assuming. I know that they're limited in what they can hold. I would recommend that you get a Nano Ledger X, but all your crypto you should be holding on those devices, maybe a small part. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a blessed and beautiful night, and I will see you guys on Sunday. Good night.